Good afternoon, morning, evening, or night, ladies and gents. My name is Alex, and I'm here today to talk to you about Age of Ultronius, aka Age of Ultron. I'm going to try my hand at doing movie reviews or something, so let's talk about it. By the way, there are going to be spoilers in this, because I'm not going to talk around it. Press watch later, add it to your favorites, something, come back if you don't care. Well, if you do care about the spoilers and you still want to see what I have to say. If you don't care, then continue listening. So this movie had a lot of things to not only live up to, but to achieve. The first of those things being it needs to be comparable to the first Avengers in a lot of ways, not only in terms of plot, but the way everything's weighted along with the villain and all the Avengers and setting up new Avengers and doing all this and that. But it also had to live up to the first movie. And if you ask me point blank, hey, do you prefer the first or the second one? For a few days after seeing it, I wasn't really sure. I couldn't put it down to which one I preferred, and ultimately I've come down to the conclusion that Age of Ultron is a better movie than the first Avengers, but it doesn't quite have the magic, the special thing, that X factor, the thing we've never seen before. The Avengers was special because it was the culmination of all this Phase 1 thing. It was unknown. It hadn't been done before. It was the test of all these movies, all the Phase 1 movies. It was the culmination of all that effort, and it was the payoff. We've seen that now. When the opening shot of Age of Ultron is a huge battle scene that is just as awesome and well choreographed and cool as the ending of the first movie, then it's weirdly deflated in comparison, despite the fact that it is really super good. So after thinking about it for a while, I do prefer the second one over the first one as a movie, but the first one will always hold that special place, and this is probably going to be the same thing for all the other Marvel movies in the future. The first Avengers is going to be that special one. Maybe not because it's the best movie out of all of them, but because, like the first Star Wars or like the first Lord of the Rings, it's the first one. It's the one that got the ball rolling. It's the proof of concept, if you will. And with that being said, this movie's really good. I have a lot of problems with it, but I have problems with all the movies ever. But I had a really good time watching this movie. So if you somehow don't know what this is about or you don't care, it's basically Iron Man mistakenly makes an AI that wants to kill everyone on the planet. The plots of these movies are never really that important. It's about the chemistry. It's about the different characters that we've been following for all this time interacting. Let me just say the best thing about this movie is Ultron himself. James Spader is absolutely perfect in the role. And it's about damn time we actually have a villain in the Marvel Universe that isn't, like, not a villain and is a goodie like Loki is, pretty much. I consider him more of a good guy than a bad guy. So it's nice that we actually have someone menacing and not completely two-dimensional, because Ultron is super interesting. And at the beginning, when he's first introduced, it's really kind of creepy as well. It's not something you come to expect from Marvel. Like, the trailers lied and they didn't lie in the sense that they were really dark and they were like, there are no strings on me. He is like that, and he does have understandable motivations, and he is a creepy character, but at the same time there is a sense of levity to him, and he's surprisingly funny, and it does make sense in terms of the plot because of Iron Man making him, and it's all like a weird culmination. So here's my favourite part, and the other favourite part for me was the Hulkbuster battle in, I think it was Johannesburg or wherever it was. That was my favourite action sequence, mainly because we've seen the Avengers kind of battle it out before in the first movie with Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man sort of having a little battle there. But this is a proper, like, shit's going down. You know, you don't mess with the Hulk. And it was just a really fun, well-choreographed action sequence. Other things I like. This movie fucks with you in really interesting ways. It has you believe and sets up a certain character to die, and then it flips it on its head at the last second, and it makes it far more satisfying and less predictable. It's super Joss Whedon-y. It's like, you've seen the way... It's basically what he does in Serenity and Firefly and all that. It feels very similar, obviously. And I feel like this movie does a good job of balancing all the characters. I have problems here and there with it, which I'll get onto in a minute, but for the most part, everyone has their moments, everyone is developed, and one of my favourite things is how there's a huge emphasis on Hawkeye in comparison to the first movie, because he was really sort of given the backhand in the compared to the first one, where he was just sort of brainwashed the entire time. In this one, he plays a far more integral role, and he's probably one of my favourite characters in it. Him and Black Widow, despite being the least powerful of the Avengers, are two of the most interesting as characters. So it was smart of them to put them in the forefront in terms of, you know, giving them some kind of depth. Where I start to have trouble with this movie is, where do I come down on, okay, it is a superhero movie and it fully embraces that it's silly, it's stupid, and it's very comedic and intentionally just sort of silly and fun in a comic book movie way. But then when can you draw the line on when you're starting to get fed up with these plots? Because I'm starting to see it, I'm starting to get worried. These movies are all going to sort of blend into one of the same thing. If every Avengers movie is going to be villain is established or comes back or whatever, they hire or create an army and then they all fight at the end with loads of faceless, characterless minions that are pretty much there to just be sort of squashed by the Avengers, and then they win. I know that's kind of what everyone wants to see, and that is the easiest way in terms of writing to get it to happen and to get everyone in that place, but I feel like there are different ways you could do it. The whole point of Ultron is that he's trying to make himself better over and he's trying to improve himself constantly, and it just seems kind of weird that he would create an army of like weaker, shittier versions of himself instead of making him like a super ultimate badass. It would have been nice to see like in the final action sequence, instead of it being a huge collection of like weak Ultrons going against the Avengers, it would have been nice if it was just Ultron and he was so powerful at this point because he improved himself beyond like all of their powers, so they had to like really work together, and it just would have been different. It would have been something that we hadn't seen before, unlike the first movie where it was all the Chitauri faceless, weirdless creatures coming through and just sort of being stormtroopers just to be murdered, because that's what they are in this movie. And sometimes it does get, it's on the verge of being, okay, there's almost too much going on here in terms of how many characters there are, how many things they're trying to balance. It's kind of amazing that this film even works at all, judging by how many new characters they're introducing, how many they're already balancing already, and it's just crazy. I can't help but feel like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are almost not necessary to anything that happens. I feel like, because Ultron is so good, and there's like no development of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, that if they just focused in on Ultron, then they could have focused on other characters that maybe we haven't learned enough about or developed properly, and sort of expanded that out more before shoving them in as well, because then you have to establish Ultron, you have to establish Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and the Vision. It's just a lot to cover. It would have made sense if it was just the Vision and just Ultron to me, because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch aren't that important, really, in terms of the base plot. I mean, the Scarlet Witch more so, but basically I just wanted more Ultron. And I guess when a movie leaves you wanting more, then I suppose that's a good thing. And what I want to see this movie again, I immediately want to see all the things I've missed, because it's so frantic, the pacing is so quick that you don't have time to dwell on every joke that hits or misses. You don't have time to think about all these things, and it's a lot to take in. And speaking about the humor, it's starting to, I don't know, I feel like there's no tension for me when everything's so lighthearted and silly. I think this movie could have been something really, really special instead of just being a really, really good, dumb action movie. It could have been something really memorable, cool, and special if, like in Serenity, Joss Whedon's serious movie based on Firefly and whatnot, if the tone was slightly more serious. I know that's not what he's going for at all, and he likes the jokes and everything, but it just doesn't contrast very well. And especially when we know that every character is going to survive pretty much no matter what, because we've already seen the next slate of movies for the next like 20 years. So that in itself is already diffusing a lot of the tension, and then when you're adding the comedy factor to it, then it's on the verge of being a bit too much. And on the same note of not having enough, like, probably the biggest problem this movie has is that there are like random scenes in there, way more than a lot of the previous other movies, Marvel movies, that of just sort of in there to set up future movies instead of being in there for the plot and to make it interesting and cool. Like Thor, for the most part, he just goes randomly, he just leaves for a big chunk of the movie, and he has all these sequences that don't really relate to anything and are clearly just setting up Ragnarok, the one that's coming out and whenever, and that just felt unnecessary. I've heard that the original cut for this movie was like 3.5 hours long or something, Joss Whedon's original cut, and it shows at certain parts because like it cuts weirdly sometimes, the editing Like, it feels a bit weird sometimes when it goes to the next scene and things feel like they're missing. So, and it's been confirmed that there's going to be like an extended cut when the DVD. Well, I don't know if it's been confirmed actually. I think it's just a rumor at this point, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume that there's going to be an extended cut at this point because there are loads of shots in the trailer that weren't in the movie. There are no strings on me when he looks at the camera from the first trailer. It isn't actually in the movie. But either which way, Marvel have yet to really screw up heavily, and this certainly isn't a screw up in any way. It's a very fun movie. It's what you'd expect. It is very much Avengers 1 plus. You know, it's like the expansion pack for the first Avengers. If you enjoyed the first one, you're going to enjoy this one again. And if you had problems with the first one, then most likely those problems are going to stay and carry over into this one. So I definitely recommend it in the end. Go see it if you're interested. It's certainly one you want to see on the big screen. It's like the only way you can do it justice, really. Although I do wish that Marvel would get their head around soundtracks a little bit better. Their soundtracks are weak. What happened to superhero themes? That's what I want to see. Give Iron Man a theme, give Captain America proper themes. I know they have like weird themes now, but they're nothing. Then you can make things far more memorable, but that's another thing. So what do you guys think about the Avengers Age of Ultron? Have you seen it yet? Are you looking forward to seeing it? If you have, then I've already spoiled it for you, sorry, or some of it at least. What do you think that Marvel are doing right, doing wrong? Tell me in the comments below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. And I quite like doing movie review discussion things, like long ones like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave 2 comments on this video of 2 different movies. They're not necessarily going to be current movies all the time. But drop a like on which one of those 2 comments, which will just be a movie name. And whichever one of those comments has the most likes will be the next movie like I review in a form like this. Anyway, thanks for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. And make sure you leave suggestions for Blabs and all the other craziness I do. I'll see you next time. Bye. And Five Nights at Freddy's 4. For fuck's sake. This happened again, folks. It's just on repeat cycle. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has been announced. It's coming this Halloween, so at least there's actually kind of a gap this time in the development. So maybe it'll be a game that has more going on in it. You never know. Maybe it'll actually be decent. Probably won't. Who cares? I guess the real question that is raised from